Salutations and welcome to a special installment of What the Cell.
What the Cell?
Today we're going to be interviewing some old people.
They're not old, they're just from the past. Specifically 1812.
But they're old though.
Yeah, but they're not physically old.
Whatever, okay. But we're going to be interviewing them about all of the events and people that were involved in the War of 1812.
Just to learn a bit more about it.
So this is Elizabeth and Edward.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Edward.
Okay, so first question.
How do you feel about the impressment of U.S. sailors? They have no right, and they've already been given multiple chances to stop.
I mean, you're right, but I think that it's understandable that they need more sailors since they're at war with France. But they shouldn't be taking the uninvolved Americans. Yeah, those are valid points. I see that you guys disagree on this a bit, though.
Yeah, frick the British, right?
So, next question. How did you feel when you heard that the Native Americans had British guns? Well, maybe they just saw selling guns as a good way to make money because they had to fund their war with France.
Of course not! The British just want America to fail and never succeed. What is your opinion on the so-called war hawks of Congress?
They really just need to calm down because war could leave America in debt and weaker than it was before.
We are correct. The British need to learn their lesson. Okay, different opinions, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Everybody can have their own opinion.
Yeah, we get to see different sides of everything that happened. Alright, next question. In what battle did Tecumseh die?
The Battle of Thames, after a triumphant victory on Lake Erie, William Henry Harrison led a march on the retreating British, those cowards.
They also took a lot of prisoners and killed a lot of natives.
So what effect did that have?
Tecumseh was able to connect most of the Native American tribes together because he was their leader. And so when he was gone, they weren't as together and there was a lot of infighting.
That made it easier and the resistance was much lessened. So America had an easy victory.
So we heard about the tragic burning of Washington, D.C.
How did you feel about the British partying in the Capitol? The British should not have been so disrespectful. They symbolically and literally burned our capital and made our president flee for his life.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing, but not quite as aggravated.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. So do you know any other information about anything that happened that night? Dolly Madison, the wife of James Madison, was able to grab a portrait of George Washington while she was fleeing, and it was the only surviving thing from the White House that night.
There was supposed to be a dinner party Dolly Madison was hosting, but she had to flee and left all the food. When the British arrived, they feasted and even tried on some of the president's fine clothing and fine things before burning it to the ground. They are despicable. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, there was a poem written during the Battle of Baltimore that's very important now. What do you know about it? It was called The Defense of Fort McHenry.
It was written during the Battle of Baltimore by Francis Scott Key. So, who was Francis Scott Key? He was a 35-year-old lawyer.
He was sent to retrieve arrested troops and gather intel secretly about what the British were planning to do next. Though they were smart enough to keep him on board, and he had to watch throughout the night during the shelling and not know the victor until morning. In the morning, he saw the American flag still flying above the fort and wrote about his joy in the poem. Joke break! How did Vikings communicate at sea? By Norse code.
My dog used to chase people on bikes a lot. It got so bad, I finally had to take his bike away.
If you look really closely, mirrors always look like eyeballs. What rhymes with orange?
No, it doesn't.
I couldn't figure out why the cannonball kept getting larger. Then it hit me.
What do you call a Frenchman wearing sandals? Philippe Philip. Quite funny. And that's the end of our joke break! The Treaty of Ghent, which was made in Ghent, Belgium, what did it do for the U.S.? Not much. All it really did was distinguish the border between the U.S. and Canada and declare peace among the British and America. Huh. So what did it not address?
The issues that started the war, the natives with British guns, the embargo acts, or even the impressment of U.S. sailors.
Well, at that point, it would have been unnecessary to write about the impressment of U.S. sailors because the British weren't doing that anymore.
Why didn't the British need sailors anymore, though? The war with France was over and Napoleon was defeated.
Oh. So then what happened to Napoleon?
Using elephants, but failed, putting an end to his reign.
So he was exiled for a second time.
Dang, persistent.
So even though it was after the Treaty of Ghent, the Battle of New Orleans occurred anyways? But what really happened?
The U.S. crushed the British, even though the U.S. were far outnumbered. General Andrew Jackson led the defiant defense of New Orleans and had very few American casualties. And who was this Andrew Jackson?
He became president. He was kind of insane.
He was the first president to have an assassination attempt. The man tried to shoot him once, failed, pulled out another gun, tried to shoot him again, failed again. When Andrew realized, he tried to beat the man to death with his cane, which is why he got the nickname Old Hickory, because of his old hickory cane.
He dueled anywhere from 5 to 100 times during his presidency, which is quite a big range. And one time, he was shot, missing by 1 inch his heart, and then proceeded to shoot and kill the man while he was still bleeding out, and the bullet was never removed from his chest because it was so close to his heart. So then after the battle, the U.S. felt really bad because they attacked during a time of peace, right?
No way. We were ecstatic. The pride of the nation surged after our amazing defeat of the British.
Okay.
We don't have the Federalist Party today, or maybe we do. I don't really pay attention to politics.
Since they were anti-war and the war was such a big success for the nation, it was hard for them to regain support.
Stupid Federalists. Of course the war succeeded.
So then how did the U.S. stabilize a strong economy without the British? The North industrialized so that they could turn raw materials into useful items.
They replicated what Europe did with triangle trade, but within our own economy, which made it much stronger.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you guys for coming to be interviewed.
Or being forced, more so.
Yeah, but thank you anyways.
Yeah, thanks.
We really enjoyed listening to your opinions and all of the facts about what happened.
Yep, that's all. Goodbye.
Bye, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and remember, war is always the answer.
Sure.